tent.
And from the top of Take two from the top of West Mountain in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Good morning, everybody. This is 94.3 FM The Talk. Is Sanity Check. Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. Frank will be heading in here shortly. X, I'm sure, will be joining us. If you want to blow off a little steam, you want to start your weekend off right, this is the place to be. 888-577-4487. That number is 888-577-4487. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Lou. You know, of course, just like Pennsylvania, Houston is not, Texas is not free of all types of political nonsense. You know, of course, a lot of our listeners probably have heard about Houston and trying to get the preachers to hand in their sermons prior to Sunday morning. So, you know, there's a big pushback here, and we're finding, you remember, Lou, historically, I believe it was the Black Cloak Regimen, where our pastors stood up, and, you know, we're starting to see that here in Texas, including, you know, my pastor who spoke out against abortion and properly electing the right people who are against those things. So it's really encouraging to see that. I think the pushback is starting, Lou.
Oh, the pushback is definitely starting, Michael. So another interesting week here, that's for sure. And we went to quite a few different events, and the newspaper came out last night, the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Gazette, another great issue our team has put together. It really is. It's encouraging, Michael, and certainly we're going to touch on a few of those subjects. But just looking at some of the headlines here, take a peek. Boy, oh boy, I'm having a rough time today. Take a peek into the Doomsday Vault. Why is our Pennsylvania Constitution being smuckered? Kids targeted via a school-free lunch program, and it goes on and on. But certainly I want to start off, Michael. This week we were in court once again. In this particular time, this was a story that has to go back a little ways with the Lackawanna Study Commission and some of the reports that they had put out. Just to remind some of our readers, what has happened back then was that the Lackawanna Study Commission was formed to look at a new form of government in Lackawanna, and they were asking some questions of our commissioners here, and they couldn't get the information. So they hired a private investigator, and the report was put out just before the election. And the Scranton Times had obviously written a lot of stories on it, and they were not a supporter of the new form of government, that was for sure. So that's kind of just like the basic background on this. But on Thursday, I was in court. It was I was there for a long period of time, 4 hours, and the Scranton Times put a right to know in to get more information from the Lackawanna Study Commission. But what I found interesting, and what happened as I left there and sitting there and watching what was going on in court. First of all the players were there, all the hotshot lawyers, the connected, which is fine, but there was a whole different atmosphere I watched going on there as opposed to when I go into family court. That was for sure. Certainly all the lawyers knew one another, the judges knew one another, so they were very, I guess, nice to one another, so to speak. One of the things that jumped out at me, there was a sidebar, and the judge just came right out and said, "Hey, is this going to be on the record?" And I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, we talk about the record. I always thought the record is the record. You don't decide what's on the record and not the record. It's the record. That's why you have somebody, a stenographer there, taking down what's going on in court. So another reason for perhaps having cameras in the courtroom. But what I did find interesting was, remember Borys? We always talk about Borys. Well, Borys wrote an article. He wrote an article about these reports, and I guess he made an assumption. I guess there was an assumption that there were two reports. And as it turns out, there wasn't two reports, and sitting there and watching the cross-examinations and asking the Scranton Times, do you have documents? And the guy says, no, I have nothing. And the guy says, he says, I have my logic. Frank Sorek just pulling. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. Can you imagine if we wrote a story and you said, well, no, I have my logic. I have no documents. I have nothing. But I wrote a story on logic.
Well, then I'd work for the Scranton Times if I did that.
So Joe Buckowicz was there, the former editor for the Times Leader. Of course, he's the new editor for the Shamrock Corporation. And Boris, once again. And we have taken Boris to task a little bit. But I think what struck me about the whole thing more than anything else, Michael, was that who's going to write about this? Is the Scranton Times going to write about that they wrote a story based on an assumption? There was nobody else there, Frank. That was it. This was us. And
where did they get their assumption, I wonder?
It was his logic.
Just his logic.
No, I have some of the thing. It was simply an assumption. It was that, there were two reports.
There was no rumor to back it up, nothing.
Well, there were rumors. Yeah, there were rumors, and they were looking for two reports, a redacted report, an unredacted report. And as it turns out, some of the information that is being requested is about the airport authority. And Michael, just to remind our readers a little bit, we wrote about that airport authority, and we
broke the story on that.
We broke the story on that. And what happened was, Michael, we gave that information to the Lackawanna Study Commission and said, wait a minute, there's way more to this. And it seems as though that's what they're fighting over right now. So, but once again, Mike, I think the important thing here is that what we're doing and why it's important to have a free and independent press in so many areas, because who's going to report on the story? At least we're there now, and we're going to stay on this one, is we're going to watch how the story gets reported and how this information gets out, and certainly we'll get it to the other news agencies, right. But at least there's going to be a second set of eyes on this. It's not going to be the Scranton Times reporting on the Scranton Times. I think that's my point.
They've done a good job so far, right?
What?
I mean, perhaps they could look into their crystal ball and see how this is going to play out.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, Frank. Watching him sit on the stand there, it is important that we make sure we check and double check and triple check our stuff.
You have to have at least one source backing it. I like to get two different people telling the same story, and then I know it's not just rumor; it's something. But you have to have something. You have to have source, document, something to back up your story. Because, believe me, I've turned away a ton of stories, Lou, that have come to me. And nobody's willing to back them up. Well, if nobody's willing to back them up, I'm not putting my name on them.
You got that right. So, Michael, that's it. It's once again, too, also, I want to take this opportunity to thank our new subscribers, the folks that are getting involved with us, and our new advertisers, which is growing. I mean, it's starting to get there, guys. I feel, Michael, the ball is starting to roll down the hill, so to speak, a little bit here. And it's taken a long time to get it to the top, but more and more people are getting involved with this. And I want to thank our subscribers also, because there is pushback at times, even from people don't want to be necessarily identified, or they feel retaliation, which I'm going to speak a little bit about that, Michael, in our next segment.
Well, Lou, there's always that fear of retaliation, and we're not naive. We've seen it. We probably have experienced it. If there's any, as you say, pushback towards the establishment, you look at papers like the Scranton Times, who really have had no watchdog towards their paper at all. And I remember just looking at some of the political reporting, and the candidates, and they were so one-sided. So, it's really about making things equal for everybody. It's making things that you have to be responsible. Common sense reporting still needs to have backing, as Frank mentions, and we can no longer tolerate just bad reporting, just to bring in, readers. And there has to be responsible journalism, and we don't see much of that anymore, Lou.
They hired the Lackawanna Study Commission hired Seidel Investigations. Seidel, 26-year FBI agent, all those other things. But one of the other things that came up, Frank, and certainly Michael, what he had testified to is that the people that he interviewed feared retribution. Mm-hmm. And that's a real deal.
That's a big part of any investigation. I mean, so often we see it, Louis, and you've had people sit down with you and they say, my name cannot be associated with this story at all. this is what happened, but please, if you publish my name, I'm fired tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they know it. And these are union members that are telling us this. And you would think, well, first off, they're protected by the union or Whistleblowers Act or something would protect these people. They know if it's not them on the hook, it will be their friends, their family. Somebody will pay for them speaking out.
So it's a real deal. I mean, it's fearing this retribution to come forward. And once again, we have said, Michael, and we play that song Brave for those individuals, especially in family courts, when everything is on the line and when your family and your children are on the line. There's nothing more important, and when they're able to still come forward, that takes a special individual, and our hats are off to those individuals that have come forward and said, you know what, there comes a time when you have to speak out and tell the truth.
There really is a time, Lou, and you talk about our children in the courts and how scary that could be. And, as our society continues to move, whether it's forward or backward, you look and say, the courts are no longer for those who have nothing. We were supposed to have a court of justice and the balance there. And now, unless you have money to back up a good, expensive attorney with, then you don't have any word in the courts anymore, Lou, particularly in the youth courts. You see it all the time where children are being taken away from their parents. And that's even big talk here in Texas now. What is going on within our courts and our children? So,
influence peddling.
Something that we have to continue to push.
You're absolutely right, Lou. Influence peddling. And sometimes the big, expensive attorney isn't even enough. If he's not friends with the judge or golf buddies with the headmaster or somebody, you're not getting the case thrown your way. And I don't care how much backup you have. I've met so many people in the custody for cash who tell me, these are good parents. They were stay-at-home moms that took care of their kids. Their husband was cheating on them. He was a no-good snake, and he's the one with full custody, and they're barely able to see their children. How disgusting.
There is so much with that, Frank, and certainly the individuals that have come forward. In our next segment, we're going to definitely talk a little bit about another event that we went to this past week, Kids for Cash. Mm-hmm. They had that at Lackawanna Community College, so we're going to get into that. Michael, just a couple other things with the newspaper where we have Frank here. City employees you made the front page headline here again, Frank. Below the fold this time, by the way. You didn't make above the fold.
I know, I saw that.
City employees' annual salary nearly triples in 8 years, to about $85,000. This was a story that you've had for a while, if I understand
This is a story that one of our readers, who will remain nameless for fear of retribution, had asked me to write. And
a while back?
A while back, yeah, they did. They saw this coming, and they saw it out of control, and they kept going after me to write it. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time or resources to dedicate to the research. And the story sat on my desk with many others, simply because I was working on other stories at the time. And I was working on another story that's in this paper, and I asked a simple question to the city spokesperson. And what I asked was, how long?
Prokop.
Yeah, Miss Prokop. I said, Liza, how long has this person been with the city? As they were a new hire, I knew there wouldn't be many records out there, maybe 2 pay cycles at best. I asked, how long has the person been with the city, and what's their annual salary? Her response was, I would advise you to seek a right to know, as that's public information. Seriously? You can't tell someone, you can't just answer the question, hey, they've been here 2 months and they were hired at $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year. I mean, that really got to me, and I thought, well, gee, if they're not this forthcoming with that information, it's no wonder the other person's asking me to write that story, because they can't get the answers either. So
it got you going.
It did. It really got me going, and I went through our list of salary requests, and I thought, well, what other salaries do we have in here? And that's when I came upon that one, the 180% increase over 8 years. I want to know how many of our listeners, aside from, the Enron executives that stole the company blind, how many of you got 180% increase over the past 8 years? Because I don't know too many.
So our subscribers, I believe, got the PDF last night. John DiLiberto, our editor, is in studio with us as always, and he's shaking his head. So that's one of the advantages of subscribing to the Independent Gazette. For our new subscribers, I'll be getting the hard copies out later this week. What I'd like to do is Arlington prints on Monday, or at least we're scheduled to print Monday for our Arlington paper, and the Carbon County paper prints on Thursday. So sometimes I like to just put them all together and just get them all out. We're going to take a quick break. When we do, we got DJ on the line from Lackawanna County. DJ, just hold on. We're going to get you on as soon as we get back. You listen to 94.3 FM The Talker. Sanity check.
Mornings, 94.3 FM The Talker.
Say what you wanna say, and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. What you wanna say.
This is for all our custody for cash moms and dads. You are truly brave, and our hats are off to you. We're back. You listen to 94.3 FM The Talker. Sanity check. The number here is 888-577-4487. Good morning, DJ.
Yeah, good morning, Lou. And the rest of you guys out there, thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you. What's on your mind this morning?
Listen, what you were saying about people being afraid. Now, you wouldn't be talking about tyranny there by any chance.
Of course not. Never.
I know nothing.
No, I know
I
nothing.
see
I'm
nothing.
telling you,
Oh, no,
I take your paper and
that's
I
our
hand it out to
solicitor.
people,
Oh,
and people
jeez.
had no idea about this kids for custody for kids, or kids for custody.
Right. Custody
And
for
they
cash, you
are
bet.
blown away by that. And I said, well, that's what happens when you have a third-party contract between the husband, the wife, and the state, and they're involved with your children. They're on their birth certificate. And I said, they're assigning attorneys to them, and then you're paying for these poor people have to pay for that.
It's absolutely unbelievable, DJ. We're going to get into this into this segment here a little bit. The Kids for Cash. I was out with Robert May yesterday, and I have a few choice words to say about the chicken littles that I saw sitting in the courtroom. But thanks for calling in, DJ, and thanks for what you're doing and keeping an eye on what's going on out there in our communities, and I think that's what it takes. It needs folks like you that are willing to stand up.
Well, same back to you.
All right,
Thanks for what
DJ.
you guys do.
Thanks for calling, man.
Take care.
So Michael. So this past week, Kids for Cash. We were at Luzerne Community College yesterday, Frank, and I'm sitting there, and the movie comes on. We're going to bring X on. We could bring X on. Good morning, X. We got X on the line here anyway. I know you want to join in on this conversation because we talked a little bit about this stuff last night. But so anyway, Michael, what it was all about yesterday, Kids for Cash, the Robert May movie. Robert May was there at Luzerne Community College. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and they're showing clips. They're showing clips of the movie. And I got to tell you, folks, it was really tugging on my heartstrings. I watching, one of the kids jumped out at me where he bought a motorcycle or a mini bike or whatever you want to call it for $250, and it wound up being stolen. And I think he's like 13, 14 years old, and for the next 6 years he was in prison. I mean, this was insane. And another girl that I guess gave the finger to a police officer. Next thing you know, she's arrested for obstructing justice or something, and she's in there for 6 years. And so anyway, they lay out all these stories, and it's like, are you kidding me? I'm watching all this stuff, right? And Judge Amesbury was there. He was on the panel, and I think you happen to like Judge Amesbury.
I do. Judge Amesbury
He's very nice. He was very nice. But before...
Very smart guy.
Very smart. Absolutely. He was very smart. being a little facetious here. So anyway, he's there, and he said, before I start, I want to recognize all the folks in the audience that are making this better. We've made all kinds of different changes in our courtrooms, and he names the DA and the CYS person and the person on probation, and everybody's standing up, everybody's clapping. Oh, everybody's great. And I'm thinking to myself, Michael, these chicken littles, these empty suits, the fancy suits are all sitting there on your dime, by the way, Michael, and X's and Frank, okay? Because they ain't there for nothing. They're collecting their paycheck, right? And I'm thinking to myself, you dogs, you're here to supposedly fix a system that you sat in. You sat in those courtrooms and said nothing. You did nothing.
Some of them took part in it.
Oh, really? I would think so, right? I mean, the whole 9 yards, but we only had the two. We had the two judges, and this is where I'm going with this stuff, Michael. And you know, I'm watching this stuff, and where are the hard questions? I sent a question up to Amesbury. Are you going to have public hearings? I don't want the public hearings with the defendant. I don't want the DA there. I want the folks that have been abused by the court system to be able to come out and speak and say and name names and name the people that are these guardian ad litems and the people that are ordering all these drug tests and putting the ankle bracelets. Let's get to the bottom of this, because guess what? These folks were part of it. The Chicken Littles. I have zero respect for these people when I look at them, and it disgusts me to think that they sat there. And because they wanted to protect their paycheck and watch kids go off and abused. And the court system, folks out there, I'm telling you, week after week, month after month, we're coming to you and telling you we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have professional people, we have moms, we have dads, we have grandparents that are coming to us and saying, this is a cesspool. They can't speak about it. And yet the guy like Amesbury had the it just drove.
Don't hold back, Lou. Tell us how you feel.
45 different things they've done to improve the courts. Really? Has the atmosphere changed in the courts? That's the bottom line.
No.
Has anything changed in the courts that a lawyer, a doctor, anybody could come forward without fear of retribution? That's what you need, and that's why we need legislators that'll stand up and say something. Anybody could jump in. Sorry.
What do we say after that one?
X.
You know, we have legislators, unfortunately, today that don't stand up for anything but themselves, and this is why we need to continue to push. And to me, it is inspiring to see that the voice is getting out, that people are starting to get braver and saying, you know, it's either them or us. And that's unfortunate where it's come to, it's either them or us, our representatives against us. And this is why we need to constantly be vigilant and constantly be pushing back, Lou, because eventually I really believe at the end of the day we're going to win this thing.
Well, we have to, and Michael, and once again, we bring up the point. Where are the cameras? Oh, I'm sitting in court and I'm looking. No cameras in the courtroom because it's there. That's to protect the children. Really? Like, we could really trust? Does anybody out there really trust what goes on in closed courtrooms? After all the things that we've been talking about, after what I just said in the first segment, do you want it on the record?
Right.
Oh, yeah, maybe we'll put it on the record, maybe, yes. Oh, and then I go to Judge Margie when I'm in judge. Oh, not to worry because it's on the record. Oh, really? It's on the record? We have folks that come to us all the time and say, geez, what's on the record is not on the record.
Well, we see that all the time. There's no true transcript of what happens because they do that sidebar. Sometimes the transcriber's there, sometimes he or she isn't, and that's it. So anything at the judge's order can be stricken from the record.
Well, it's stricken from the record, or they don't put it on the record.
What if you're on the witness stand and you say something incriminating? Can that be stricken from the record? Judge, you know what? I misspoke. Sorry. Could you pull that from the record, please?
Pull that one from the record.
I didn't mean to confess to murdering.
I mean, and Michael, so we have, so when I hear these things, and when I go to these forums and they're very much controlled, I mean, can you imagine if I was able to even address Amesbury? I'm going to. Trust me on this. I'm going to go see Amesbury and say, are you going to call for a public hearing? Because, you're out there touting how all these great changes they've made. I haven't seen any changes. Yeah, now, here was one of the changes they're touting. Okay? They're touting the fact that from here on out, every child needs to have a court-appointed lawyer. Well, I watch these court-appointed lawyers, and when you talk about putzes, some of these guys, they can't speak out because they lose their job. Right. They're on the money tube. They're on the feeding tube. That doesn't just automatically give you, those are great little changes.
Who hires the court-appointed lawyers?
It's the courts.
Well, not necessarily the courts. It's your elected officials who are up there golfing with the judges. So, if your county council people or elected officials are the ones making the determination of setting policies for the court-appointed attorneys and who hires them, then you have to wonder how secure the system is when they're best friends with the judges. It's just a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle, and when you look at who's watching, and then when you go to the disciplinary board, you see the people that are in charge of the disciplinary board. It's the judges and the lawyers watching over the judges and the lawyers of what's going on, and then you wind up losing licenses. We hear it all the time. And then when we talk about all the changes, how much changes have been made? There's more children. At least this was what was reported at this there's more children in jail in Pennsylvania than any other state in the country.
Right.
What are we doing here, folks? It said something about Michael. X, I'm going to grab you on it here in a second. I think one of the things they said, nationwide, the average cost of educating a child was a little over $10,000 per student, okay? But to keep them in prison was $88,000 per prisoner. And when you see this, when you see a 13-year-old kid, talking about, you're there for, you don't even know why you're in court. And then these folks are throwing shackles on their legs and putting the belt on and shackling their hands and taking them off the court while they're crying, and the moms and the dads are, I mean, is this the country we're living in? And there's no way to even follow up on it.
And you have to wonder, for what?
We know what.
Yeah.
They're in jail for we know what.
For giving the finger to a police officer.
No. I'm talking about the judges are in jail because we know what, because of the cash.
Exactly. Yeah, the kickbacks. But I'm talking about the kids. It's not like they're 10-year-old murderers, and there are some.
Of course.
But
I'm tired of that too all the time. It's always a but. It's always a this. It's always a that. How about the one person that gets screwed? I mean, it's always, and Frank, you know where I'm saying, because it's always like, oh, we know this we know there's bad people out there, but there's an awful lot of bad people sitting in these cesspools we call courtrooms.
Absolutely.
And it's about time. I'm getting the thing here. We have to take a break. X, we're going to have you on when we come back. 94.3 FM The Talk. You listen to Sanity Check.
Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM The Talker.
This came, by the way, from a caller to my radio show, Jason from Washington, D.C. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington, and that's the secret buzz going on inside the Beltway.
That's what we say.
Never.
From Washington, D.C.
Don't listen. Jason.
He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington.
Connected insider.
That's what we need.
That's what we got. 94.3 FM, The Talk, a Sanity Check. Good morning, X. X, I had to play that a little bit because certainly they're talking about Washington Insider. You certainly call a lot of radio shows during the week, conservative radio shows, progressive shows, liberal shows. You call all kinds of shows, and certainly in that particular segment, they listened to what you had to say and splashed across all the national media that you're a connected Washington insider. But what I want to talk about a little bit is you were on the Mark Levin show this week, and if I could just kind of lay this out and then let you run with this for a little bit, was that you called into the Mark Levin show and you praised him, what a great job he was doing, that he supports the police, and so of course Mark Levin, oh, what a great patriot you are there, Jason. This is great that you called in, and you're absolutely right. And then, of course, you laid the little bomb on him and said, well, Mr. Levin, how about that third-party candidate, the police officer in Kentucky that's not allowed to be in the debates? And the next thing you know, you rat, you're no good. Who are you? You're a shill to the show. So with that little bit of lead-in, X, you got it.
Hey, guys. So what's going on across the entire country is I don't know if it's an organized effort, but it is certainly pervasive. And what is happening is, in the past, when third-party candidates were getting between 1% and 2%, it was very easy to exclude them from debates. But what's been taking place over the last two election cycles is that libertarians and some independents in races across the country are polling above 5 to 7%. And now what happens is the criteria that they used to have suddenly doesn't keep them out anymore. So what these debate commissions are doing across the country is they're rigging the system, whereas there's a guy named Wiley. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following what happened down there, but Wiley is running for governor. He's polling at between 11 and 12%. Now, of course, we've got the drama of the two candidates down in Florida. One doesn't want to go on the stage because the other one has a fan by his feet to keep him cool. The other one doesn't. And they're keeping a guy named Wiley out of the race. Now, this is a guy with an organization who's been building it for 2 years. But, again, they're trying to say he's not a real candidate. Now, under the rules that were established in Florida in 2007, he only had to be polling 7%. Under the new rules where he's in Florida, they've raised it to 15%. In Kentucky, which I was calling in about the Mark Levin show on, what happened was the candidate, Dave Patterson, was polling at about 6 to 7%. And now remember, this was a public television
That's right.
Program. This was not, a private company that can set their own rules. Public television initially had it so that anybody on the ballot would have to be in the debate. Then what happened was they raised it to 5%. Patterson starts getting higher than 5%. Guess what? Magically, it now becomes 15%. And they keep going to this 15% number across the country. Rob Sarvis, who ran for governor of Virginia, last year, to be included in the debates, he had to be polling 10%. Well, guess what? Now that he's running for the U.S. Senate, they've raised it to 15. See, so this is pervasive. And believe me, if Sarvis or some of these other people were polling at 15%, they'd come up with a new criteria like you need to have $1 million in the bank. Or, you need to have a campaign staff of 50 people. What they're doing is they're constantly changing these goalposts for third-party candidates because they need to keep them off the stages.
That's right.
This is driving the establishment crazy because in a two-way race, pumping tons of money into an election does have an effect. But when you have a third party in the race, it completely upends it so that even if you dump in $1 million, it does not assure you that you're going to be getting the outcome that you want. You're not going to be able to gain the same influence because now people have a choice. It's not Coke and Pepsi. It's Coke and Pepsi and Sprite.
Well, one of the things certainly, and another thing that was part of the Kentucky thing, which is very, 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 I guess, troubling, is the fact now they're also putting how much money a candidate needs to have in their war chest. So unless you're connected, unless you're getting money from special interest groups, that's going to be another criteria that's coming out. It is extremely disappointing. The court has said that state entitles or the state can rewrite the rules in the middle of the game. This isn't even about libertarians, about everyone who's not part of the old parties. The First Amendment now applies to the chosen ones.
What a lot of people don't understand is the judge in Kentucky.
Yeah, there you go.
They went to court to say, look, this is unfair. This is public television. We've got internal memos of you guys talking about how you're going to raise the criteria to keep the libertarian out. Now, this wasn't the Republican or Democratic Party. This was the public television is talking about how do we keep the libertarian out of the debates. So they take it to court. Okay, the judge was the person that Mitch McConnell hired while he was in law school. He's a personal friend of Mitch McConnell, the guy who's running, who's in the Kentucky Republican.
Right.
So the person, why don't I get my mother to sit on the jury?
And this is why we keep bringing this stuff up, is because, it's about what's happening around the whole country. It's a sad state of affairs what's going on, folks. When we always bring up about the Presidential Debate Commission, the 501(c) corporation that is set up. We talked last week about where the League of Women Voters have come out and said it's perpetrating a fraud on the American public. And X, I think, and Michael, as we continue to talk about this, hopefully we're starting to raise more awareness to our listeners, and certainly as we're growing as a newspaper and getting this information out to more and more individuals, maybe people will start saying it is just not right what's going on here. I just wanted to one of the part of the press release that came out. This isn't talking about Kentucky. This isn't even about libertarians. It's everyone who's not part of the old parties. It's Michael. It's about the Tea Parties. It's about the independents out there. The First Amendment now only applies to the chosen ones. Welcome to the illusion of choice. Actually, you always bring that up. Welcome to the oligarchy. I mean, folks, when is it? When is enough enough? I mean, when do we finally say that, we keep bringing these things up and we keep bringing it to people's attention? When does the parties, when do the party leaderships, we talk about Senator Baker, when do you go to your party and say, it's an embarrassment? This is not what I've signed up to do. I've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. I was listening to David Madeira's show this past week, or yesterday. I listened to it all week long, and certainly David's on 94.3 here Monday through Friday, 6 to 9. And by the way, I have to throw this plug out there. It is really, really, really a great show. It has gotten better over the years. Michael, David has really, over the last couple of years, it's riveting in so many different ways. I used to channel surf, but I don't anymore because the morning, this is the only place to be listening to here locally. I wish we could have grown as much, Michael. We still have those faux pas, but David has some really great information on there day after day, week after week. But, one of the things that they have is the Hillsdale Constitution Minute. And, listening to David talking about this is what we're supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about the Constitution. And then if we don't have that, what else do we have? And we keep closing our eyes, like all these things that are happening around the country and keeping people off the ballot and keeping people off the stage. Is this what we want? I mean, is this so our guy could win? I know Frank's ready to jump in. Yes, Lou, what are you guys having again?
It's just more of the same. I mean, it's never going to change until people wake up. And the only way people wake up is when it happens to them or someone they know. Other than that, we like to, as Americans, we love to keep our heads buried in the sand and say, you know what, I don't want to get involved, or that's not my thing. Well, it is your thing. When it happens to you or someone you know, then it becomes your thing. But had you changed it prior, you wouldn't be having this issue now. And that's what people have to realize. Now is the time to stand up and say, you know what, this isn't right, regardless of who's being disenfranchised. It's just not right.
Michael, go ahead. I'll let you jump in here.
It's really interesting because I'm thinking about this and I'm looking at how it's at the top of the food chain. It happens at the bottom of the food chain. Right here in good old Blanco, Texas, a population of a little over 1,700. It's even impossible to get on the school board because the football player, the star football player from 15 years ago, needs to be there. Now we know in Luzerne County what happens when you put the star football player in office, i.e. Skretnak. But this is the mentality. And they're willing to sit back and again, Frank's point, to sit back and put incompetent people in the position that makes a difference in our culture. So this is what we really need to push for these third-party candidates because Lou, that there are better candidates on the third party, not all the time, but many times that are more qualified than what's being stuck in front of us at the voting.
And Michael, once again, it's not even about third parties. It's just about what is right. That you have to have a choice. As we promised, we wrote our story, and on the headlines, one of our headlines of our paper, which will land in well over 50,000 homes this month. Why is our PA Constitution being smuckered? I have his mug. His mug is right there on the front page with the story, why is the Constitution being smuckered? And it's going to be sent to all the state legislators. We have some of the quotes on the inside. Some legislators would be better served by replacing the Bible with their party playbook. We're going to stay on this story, and it's not going to stop this month, and it's not going to stop next month, and it's going to go into January, and we're going to take pictures of people getting sworn in, and we're going to stay on this because the time has come to follow the Constitution. One of the quotes at one of the quotes that we have in the paper, and I just want to read a little bit of it, and hopefully as a little teaser for our readers and people to pick up the Gazette. It says, as you head to the polls this November, please consider those candidates willing to speak out. Evaluate them not by the letter next to their name, but by the principles they hold dear. I say, I will leave you with this. Cowardice. Ask the question, is it safe? Expediency. Ask the question, is it politic? Vanity. Ask the question, is it popular? But conscience. Ask the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But one must take it simply because it is right. That was Martin Luther King. The time has come to put the politics aside and do what is right, make elections in Pennsylvania free and equal for all. We'll take a break. We'll be back. You're listening to Sanity Check 94.3 FM The Talker.
3 FM The Talker.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore.
I think I've made it pretty clear what I stand for, and I know what you guys stand for. How about we stand for the Constitution, for goodness sakes?
Come on, that's no fun. Lou, this is Pennsylvania. Get with the program.
Get with the
we
program.
stand for corruption, political favors, and kickbacks.
And the connected. And the connected. X, this is for you. I'm going to give you a softball here. I wrote this down at the beginning of the week. I was listening to the news, and I wrote this. Kudos to Senator Elizabeth Warren, okay, for our conservative Tea Party friends. Okay, you can pick yourself up off the floor now, but kudos to Senator Elizabeth Warren for lambasting the Obama administration. Thank goodness somebody from their own party lambast their own party. That's what we've been saying. And she was lambasting in the Obama administration on the blind support it gives to Wall Street. And one of the notes, X, that I wrote down here a little bit was, I hope she lambasts Hillary when she runs for for supporting the blind support that they have given to Wall Street, because even more so than President Obama, certainly Hillary Clinton has supported the nonsense that has went on in Wall Street. X.
Hey, it's interesting. The libertarians have been arguing about this crony capitalism stuff for years. And somehow now when one or two people within the system talk about it, suddenly now it's like a big deal. But this goes to show you the one thing the system cannot handle, and this is above all else, whether it be Luzerne County or it be on the national political scene, or how the government handles Ebola. The one thing they cannot have is for a moment do not do anything to undermine the authority of the system being in control. You have to have, don't do anything that would make anybody question the CDC. Do not do anything that will make you question the court system going on. And there's no greater, there's no greater recent example of this than the fact that Eric Holder, the most incompetent attorney general in recent U.S. history, how does a company like Glaxo get fined $3 billion and nobody went to jail? How does a HSBC launder money for Iran and not go to jail? Wachovia Wells Fargo laundering drug cartel money, nobody goes to jail. It's interesting though. You can see how the pundits who are building this case for Elizabeth Warren to be out there. I actually confronted Bernie Sanders yesterday on the radio. He was on the Thom Hartmann show, and I said to him, he was talking about bribery and things like that, and I said, if Hillary Clinton gets out of office and gives a lecture to the National Realtors Association to the tune of over $100,000 for a less than 2-hour speech, and then goes to the International Recycling Association and gets another couple $100,000, is this not a flat-out bribe? And then, of course, Bernie starts like hemming and hawing. He goes, "Well, it's not right." Yeah, but that wasn't the question, Bernie Sanders. He's another champion of the progressive left. He can't even come out and say the same thing. The modern system is set up today so that instead of giving you a paper bag with money in it, what we do is we hire you or your family and give them jobs or payments for next to nothing.
Well, X, and I think what you're hitting on, and certainly Frank and Mike, I'll get you guys in on this conversation, is the importance. We have Gary from Mill City that calls in here sometimes, and he says the same thing is that we got to call it the way it is, and that's why we take some hits, Michael. When we start talking about the Barlettas and the Bakers and when they're not living up to what they say they're promised, and you have to be able to speak out. It's not about the parties. I mean, it's about the individuals, and if we don't speak out, then
Lou, I don't blame the Bakers or the Barlettas or whomever for not living up to their promises. I blame the voters for continuing to reelect more of the same. The complete definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. These people are doing what you, the voters, allow them to do. And as long as you continue to walk into that voting box and check that straight party ticket and vote for the same old, you're going to get the same old. And they're not even going to hand out Preparation H anymore because they don't have to.
Hey, talking about Barletta and Ostrowski, they're running for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. We were able to, they're going to have a debate. They have a debate on the 27th at WVIA. I got a couple tickets, so folks, you could get in touch with me. I only got 2 tickets there. WVIA has a small audience there, but if any of our listeners want to actually go to the debate, give us a call, and I'll get you. I have two tickets to give away, Frank. So, but Michael, once again, standing up and speaking out and letting our party members. I think that's almost more important anymore, saying, wait a minute, what do you stand for? I don't stand for this, and just because you and me happen to be of the same party, if our party is wrong, if we're not following the Constitution, we're Americans first, and we all see it all collapsing around us. We really do. So either we're going to stand for something, we stand for nothing. Sorry, Michael.
We do, Lou. And one of the things I want to jump back to the Smucker thing, we're blaming the Republican Party, and that's certainly part of it. But what a great political opportunity for the Democrats to jump in and say, look at how the Republicans are taking away your right to vote. But you don't see them doing it, Lou.
Right.
So because they're just as involved in protecting their little game of just the two-party system that they're not going to touch Smucker. I mean, here is an opportunity to really, really destroy the Republican Party in the state of Pennsylvania, but they won't do it, Lou.
And Michael, you're right, and that's why we're kind of twisting the argument now. Let's go into the morality of this. Let's go to what is right. You're exactly right, and I forget the senator from Pittsburgh. He was a Democrat, and we did a story maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months ago on SB 195, and he said exactly what you said. He said to me, he says, Lou, he says, as much as Smucker is holding this up, I got to think that if there was a Democrat in office, they would do the same thing.
Of course they would, because if it's not us, it's them. That's the mentality right now with the two-party system. If the Democrats can't have control, the Republicans will, and it will shift back and forth. But if you open this up broadly and you let anybody, regardless of political affiliation, have a chance at an election, well, now what have you done? It's not just if it's not us, it's them, and vice versa. Now it's anybody can have it. The Democrats or the Republicans don't stand a chance because now the voters won't have that opportunity to walk in and just hit that D or R. They're going to have to look at these people by name, and they're going to realize, I don't want that shyster in office anymore.
And Michael, one of the things also in the article that was written in the Gazette here, and it was an editorial about the whole Smucker thing, is that let's just make it free and equal across the boards. I don't want to be I don't want to be paying for the Republicans or Democrats to pick their candidates. Why do we have the largest growing electorate, the independent? Why do we have to pay for them to pick their candidates in a primary system that is set up to give them more, more exposure before anything even starts.
Look, again, this is Pennsylvania.
We know that.
And per your Pennsylvania Constitution, you are taxed without representation. That's got to be somewhere in there. Taxation without representation, a Pennsylvania policy.
So this is just an important point to make in regards to all of this, and that is, for all of those clamoring for clamping down on money in elections,
yes.
The one thing we've learned is this: if they ever do it, what will happen is the money will only go to Republicans and Democrats.
Bingo.
That's the end game on this. People don't understand. You think you're going to clean the system up by getting the money out. Then what they'll do is they'll just control access, just like they're preventing these candidates from getting on the stage. Remember, during my race, I was required by law to be in the debates. What do? They change the name of the debate to a form, and then they keep you out. Mm-hmm. They say, you can qualify for funding. Every Republicans and Democrats get $10, you get $1.
That's right.
So this is what we're looking at here. So this whole idea about people talking about money in politics, money's the only thing that might prevent a runaway tyranny, because you need to have people to be able to take out ads and protect themselves.
X, you're right, spot on, and we've been saying that. That's exactly right. I mean, we take that money out. Who's going to control? I love these arguments that corporations are not people, and only corporations. They're putting all this money into the elections. Well, what is MSNBC?
Right.
What is CBS? What is Fox News? Are they corporations?
I would much rather have the corporations give the money directly than their employees. Easier to track. If I can see a candidate getting all of their money from Cabot Oil, and then you have to wonder, well, gee, are they in bed with the gas companies?
Exactly.
Well, I'd much rather see that Cabot's giving the money directly.
And the whole sunshine portion of this, that's what we need. We have to make sure we're able to track who's giving the money.
Sure, let the corporations give the money. Why not?
But taking the money out of the politics, you're exactly right, Michael. I mean, all this will do is empower those that are already in power, and that's why we're talking about what we're talking about. Folks, I want you to just look at what's going on, how they changed the games, how they changed the rules. Think about what's happening in Kentucky. They're going to start putting monetary figures now on whether you are, and this is nothing new, but now it's starting to come out more and more. So if you run for office, you have to have a special interest in your pocket that'll write you a check for $1 million so that you could be in these debates. I mean, it's so backwards.
Just exclude everybody except for the 1% from running. That's what they're doing.
Right.
What they're doing is the exact same thing that Coke and Pepsi do with the soda shelf. They buy their space on the shelf, and if you want to sell your soda, you're going to be in the back bottom, back behind the Frito-Lays and maybe the potato chips. Okay, but they will always do this, and that's the real danger. Again, is you're giving them the power to change the rules arbitrarily and unfairly against. It would be a different story if it was applied equally, but as we've known over and over again, the rules are never applied equally.
And we say this.
Are more equal than others, to quote Animal Farm.
Right.
Yeah, and we say this over and over and over again. I mean, we go fight these wars so that they could have free elections over there, and look what's happening over here.
Could someone please recall the troops? We need them here on Election Day.
We need them all over the place, except that we have them scattered all over the world. I mean, to doing whatever they're doing over there, and yet it seems as though that
containing security in West Africa is what they're doing.
Michael, we're getting down to this. We're down to the last minute or so, but certainly I'm sure you have a few just to chime in here, and then we're done. We're finished. We're down to our last 44 seconds here, Michael.
Well, simply this. This is not just a Pennsylvania issue. This is a national issue, so it affects all of us.
It sure does. Michael, you got the last word, my friend.
God bless all.
God bless everybody. We'll see you next week on Sanity Check.